Vamo Brasil! Today let's talk more about the World Cup 2026, and today we're going to talk about one of the most iconic national teams of all time, Brazil. Vamo Brasil! Vamo Neymar! Brazil is one of my favorite nations. I am from Portugal, so we have an historical connection, and since I can remember, Brazil has been the most magical, even by the fans, the players, their playstyle. So they've been the most magical national team I've been watching on the pitch since growing up. But I did not experience the true world-class Brazilian teams that came in kind of before the 2000s and they were present early 2000s with Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Juninho Pernambucano. I do remember those players, but not in the national team. And I think I never experienced Brazil being like the best national team at a tournament. But their vibes are always perfect. The party is always going up. They have an insane football culture in Brazil. They have millions of people watching their matches of their national league. They feed Europe with talent season after season after season. And I think Brazilians were the only ones to at least have one player in all of the Champions League final. I don't know if that happened last year. No, it did. Marquinhos was there for Paris Saint-Germain, and Marquinhos and Martinelli will be there next Saturday in 2 days for the Champions League final. So I'll be rooting for Brazil unless they play Portugal. Of course, then I'll be rooting for Portugal. But if Brazil wins versus Portugal and they play well and they deserve it, I will not be mad. I will still be happy because I really, really like Brazil as a country, as a culture, and that Brazil is on my top lists, is on my top destinations to go and visit. But for me, the problem is Brazil is so big, I don't know where to go. I don't know to where zone, South, Centro, Nordeste, and then everybody is like, oh, this zone is the best, that zone is the best. So I'm so confused, so I need to have a long time to explore Brazil, or at least go there multiple times, and of course I want to go there, watch some football matches, because the ambience is insane. And not only I want Brazil to win, and not only I want Brazil to do well in this World Cup, I think their fan base is the fan base that deserves the most. Because their faith in the national team, the way they live football, the way they live the national team is crazy. Because here in Portugal, we are crazy about football too. But when it comes to the national team, it's a bit more surface level. It's a bit more Nutella, like they say in Brazil actually. It's not so passionate, it's not so loving, it's more like a popular thing than really a footballistic and the belief sense that used to happen more back in the day. Now it's more soft, it's more a bit more plastic, but still from the Portuguese, not from a bunch of tourists. Like, of course, you have Ronaldo always calling up the attention, and now Bruno and Vitinha and João Neves calling the attention of foreign people, but from the Portuguese people, especially in games at home, you can see a lot of people that they are not usually into football, but they are into the national team. While in Brazil, it doesn't matter. You just see so much love, so much passion for the team. They really suffer, they really live it, and their whole country has given so much to football in general that I think their fan base, not the team, Brazil, but the fans, they deserve it. They deserve to celebrate, they deserve to feel really good about their national team. Will it happen though? I don't think so. I don't think Brazil is the best team in the world. I don't think they are in the favorites to win, but it's Brazil. And you can never count Brazil out of the competition because they have that magic. You never know, they might have some players that you didn't heard about. They might have some limitations in their squad, but if they play with love for their shirt, with love for their country, with love for the legacy of Brazil and what it represents and what represented, they can just become the best team in the world out of nowhere. They have their talisman, their living legend, Neymar Júnior. Força Neymar, faz gol Neymar. I got really glad when Neymar was called up, and it was so cool to see the fans getting so excited about Neymar also being called up. And they still have talent, of course, going forwards. But now let's start the analysis. First, we have to mention that Brazil is experiencing a lot of injuries and some talented players being left out, especially on the attack, but they have a lot of they have a lot of good talent on the attack, so it's natural that one has to leave or the other needs to stay behind. But in general, I think their squad is a bit limited, especially in the fullback position. I think it's their worst part of the field. And then going forwards, they have a lot of really good players, but they don't have that star. Vinicius never plays well. Maybe this season it will change, but he usually, that's a better wording, he doesn't play well for the national team. And for a long time now, just like Portugal, Brazil has been lacking a striker that is like really, really good. They have some good strikers though, especially playing in the Premier League and whatnot. They had João Pedro, didn't call them up, but they have Igor Thiago. But Igor Thiago numbers are a bit inflated because he was on penalty duty. But still, playing in the Premier League on not on the top team and scoring a bunch of goals, it's very difficult, and he achieved it. But let's talk about, I think, the most important factor of this Brazilian national team is that they have a good manager. For the longest time, they've been using Brazilian managers. Even Portugal used a Brazilian manager in Scolari, but for the longest time, they've been using Brazilian managers, trusting their own country to source their manager. But now they have a different manager. It's Ancelotti, and he's a very, very good manager. But is he good for competitions like the World Cup? Because he's been managing clubs, not national teams, for the longest time. So we know he's a good manager, but can he do the job as a national team manager? Maybe he needed some experience before taking a big job here, but he'll make them play good, I believe. He'll understand the best and worst parts of the team. I think he can put them to good motion. In general, I like this squad from Brazil. I think there was not like crazy choices. Maybe leaving João Pedro out was a bit crazy. Maybe some central back could be called instead of the other. But let's take a look. At it and discuss. So here we have the list of the call-ups for Brazil. First in goal, Alisson, Ederson and Weverton. Alisson and Ederson classical. They are very, very good. I think Alisson is a bit better than Ederson. And Ederson had a really bad season at Fenerbahce, so I think Alisson will be the starting goalkeeper, but Alisson is not as good as he used to be. So even in this department, they're losing a little bit. They could have called Bento, which is a very good goalkeeper from Saudi, but he got injured. So they have to rely on Ederson or Weverton if Alisson gets injured. And it's not bad, of course. They are not the worst goalkeepers in the tournament. Ederson can still be very good. Weverton, to be honest, I don't know how good he is, but he's very experienced. He's the oldest of the goalkeepers, by the way. So, I mean, if he needs to play a game or two, I think he'll get the job done, most likely, but he's not world class. But he's good class. Then we go into the defense, which is better than most people think. It's true you don't have the star central back that Brazil used to have, but it's very solid. So we have Gabriel Magalhães from Arsenal, wins Premier League, plays in the most competitive and the most physical league in the world. I think he's a great choice. He'll start every single game. And then we have Bremer, Marquinhos, and Leo Pereira. Ibanez, we'll talk about him in a separate note. So I think, for example, here Beraldo from PSG, I think, could have been a good choice. Because even though he doesn't play a lot for Paris Saint-Germain, he's still on an elite club. He plays sometimes and he's very, very good with the ball. But I think Bremer is actually a very good choice. He's strong, very athletical, he's somewhat intelligent. I didn't watch a lot of his matches, but I did watch some of his matches this season, and he's very composed. Might have some problems playing from the back, but I don't think he's the worst in that aspect. And then we have Marquinhos, which is the legendary, at the moment, central back for Brazil. He's going to play a Champions League final. He's not good as he used to be. And sometimes he makes some mistakes. Sometimes he's cooked by more creative players. But I think Ancelotti will start Magalhães and Marquinhos, which I don't disagree, but I think it's not the best. I think it's not the most solid option. But for the Brazilians and for the way they lead the national team, Marquinhos has to start, you know what I'm saying? And then we have Leo Pereira representing Flamengo, representing the Brazilian league. If you are a manager of the Brazilian national team, you need some Brasileirão representation. You need os moleques representando. You can't just have people from the Premier League and La Liga. No, you need at least 3 players minimum from Brasileirão. Because it's Brazil. It's Brazil. You have to represent. You can't just not bring somebody from the Brazilian league. You have to represent, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know much of him, but I know he's very solid. And I know he will not be making a lot of mistakes while defending. I can imagine a world well, he fumbles under pressure if the team is playing from the back. But I think it's a good choice. It's solid. Brazil doesn't have a great pool of central backs. He's representing Brasileirão, and I think that's good. Now, my problem is if you watch the videos here on the channel and you watch my FEM streams and you hear me talk about these things, you know that for me, Roger Ibanez is a problem because he's coming from Saudi Arabia. Now, in Football Manager, every time I get a chance, I will sign Ibanez because his contract usually runs down in the first or second year, and then he's a very, very good central defender. But in real life, it's very different because the competitive level, the intensity is very, very different. In FM, there is not really the expression of that happening, but in real life there is. And that's why I also complain with the calls of Ruben Neves and João Félix to the Portuguese national team, because they also play in the Saudi League. Yes, Ronaldo also, but it's Ronaldo, it's different. And I always question their intensity, their mentality, their ability to be playing, for example, 90 minutes, a full game versus France, versus Argentina, versus Portugal in this case. Can they keep up? You know what I'm saying? Because the Saudi League is really, really weak. A lot of people try to glaze it. It's not, okay? It's not. Like a friend of mine was playing here in the second Portuguese league, and he's doing better in the Saudi league, playing for a non-top club, than he was doing as a striker in the second league of Portugal. So it's not about having better players or not, because the Saudi league has better players than the Portuguese second league. It's all about the intensity and how well people defend there, for how long the intensity is at its maximum during a match, because in the World Cup versus the big teams, the intensity, if the weather allows it, of course, the intensity will be on the maximum for the 90 minutes, you know what I'm saying? And can this play, especially the central back, such a fragile position where you cannot commit any mistakes, can they hang on for that long? We'll have to see. I don't think so. I think they need a strong mentality, and they need to now, in this 2 weeks left until the World Cup, they need to really train very well with the team, get those connections going, and enhance that rhythm, enhance that capacity. But in general, I think the central backs are not bad. You have Gabriel, which is really good, Bremer that is good, Marquinhos that is good, and then Leo Pereira and Roger Ibanez are a bit of a question mark for me. But you have three good central backs, and that usually is enough if nobody gets injured or too tired. Usually, not always, and sometimes it's really not enough. Then we go to the fullbacks position, and here is really where Brazil struggles. You have Danilo and Alexandro, both from Flamengo as well, which they've been really good, but not anymore. And again, the intensity, I think they'll be more prepared than somebody from the Saudi League, but this case, me questioning the intensity, it's not about the Brasileirão, the Brazilian League, it's about the players themselves. They're very old already. They played at a very, very high level, which they have that experience. They represent the national team for a very long time, and I think that helps. But in games, for example, if they play wingback, they'll not be able to go back and forward that much. So maybe they're forced to play fullback and play deeper, so not giving a lot of runs going forward, which can limit the expression of the attack of Brazil. So Alexandro and Danilo, is it really the best that Brazil could do? I don't know. Then we have Wesley, which is, I think, been very good for Roma. I think he's the best fullback for Brazil, because then you have Douglas Santos, which, according to the Brazilians, I didn't know about Douglas Santos, but according to the Brazilians, he's very solid. Like, they say that he goes to the World Cup, he scores no goals, makes no assists, but it's not because of him that Brazil will lose or concede games. He'll be there to help the team and be very solid. So, okay. I think Brazil maybe had one or two better choices here for the fullback position, but I mean, Alexandre and Danilo, they bring experience and they bring mentality, they bring the Brazilian spirit. Wesley brings quality and Douglas Santos brings safety, and I think this is really where opponent teams will explore Brazil, attacking wide, so maybe Ancelotti needs to use tracking wingers or wide covering midfielders to help them, because Alexandro and Danilo, they will be very good defensively until like the 60-minute mark, and then from there on it's open. Like, imagine France versus Brazil, no injuries, right? You have Danilo and Alexandro as fullbacks for Brazil, and then for France you have Dembele, Olise, Doué and Cherki, right? So on the wings, you have Doué and Olis versus Danilo and Alexandre. You know what I'm saying? It will be enough. Vai safar, vai dar para safar. It will be good enough for the group stage, maybe. Against Morocco, contra Marrocos, maybe. Right? And Scotland as well in their group, no? That's a strong group, bro. Maybe they play 3 central backs and 2 wingers as wing backs, and the central backs take care of the defending. I don't know how will that be, but if Brazil goes down, maybe it's not even them that will be the problem. But I think they will not be the reason that Brazil will go through. But we'll see. Maybe, like I said earlier, the spirit of Brazil is really, really high this season, and they can bring it forward. Now, on the midfield, we start with the crazy... Bro, what a crazy call. Fabinho. From Al Ittihad, no? Yeah, like the Brazilians say, dinossauro aqui, gente. A dinosaur. Bro, for me, that makes no sense. A very experienced player, but very old, very out of their prime, playing in a very weak league. And I think Brazil has better defensive midfielders than Fabinho. Like, what are we talking about here? But Fabinho, I think, awful, in my opinion. Very, very wrong shot here from Ancelotti. Maybe I'll be proved different. Maybe he'll play, like, very close to the defense, where he doesn't need to run a lot. Or Brazil will play super high press, and he stays behind just recovering balls. If he doesn't need to run much, I think maybe he can still do well, but... Let's move forward. Casemiro had to be here, a very good season at Man United, 3rd place in the Premier League, and he's very, very strong on the corners and set pieces, and he's the face of Brazil as well, or one of the faces. Then Bruno Guimarães, coming hot from the Premier League, not the best season collectively for Newcastle, but he has intensity, he has rhythm, he has quality of passing. He's like a younger, fresher Casemiro, that I think is a bit more mobile and a bit more fresh and energetic, and perhaps a bit better on the balls and risky passes, but like Casemiro and Bruno Guimarães, banger midfield, I think. Not the best in the world, but really good, really solid. I might see them, I'm now imagining them being like struggling to stop a counter-attack, or like struggling to cover the space between them and the defense against faster, more creative adversaries. But in theory, in general, I think it's a great midfield. Then we have we have Danilo, and the Brazilians, they really wanted Danilo to come through, because he's a very good and solid central midfielder, according to them, I don't know, but then he's great going forwards. You know what I'm saying? He's reminding me of Fratesi, because recently I was doing a Football Manager save, where I was trying to win the World Cup with Italy, and Fratesi is a midfielder with 16 finishing and 19 off the ball. He's not an offensive midfielder, he's a central midfielder with those stats. Of course, I was using him as offensive midfielder, but I think Danilo should be kind of like him. Good finishing, good off-the-ball movement, but also contributes well in the middle, building and defending. And they were really, like, everybody wanted Danilo to come through from Botafogo, also representing the Brazilian league, and hopefully he can bota some fogo. Bota means place, or put in there. Fogo means fire, so maybe can place, can bring some fire to the competition. That will be really, really good. I think it's a good choice if he is what the Brazilians depict. That's what Brazil kind of needs as well. That strong midfielder that is able to go into the box and score some goals and then come back quickly. Then Lucas Paqueta, I mean, he's very solid, a lot of integrity, represents the national team for a long time. He transformed more into a box-to-box. He was more like a number 10, then became more a box-to-box because he was playing in the Premier League for a long time, you know what I'm saying? So I can see the point. I don't like it. I feel it's too stuck, too rigid, too old. Not the player, but the midfield already from Brazil is Fabinho, Casemiro, and Bruno. Very like defensive. And then you have Danilo, which I don't really know, and Lucas Paqueta that are more like box to box and not really creatives. In the middle, sometimes you need that. Like I think Vitinho is a good example in Portugal. And I think Lucas Paqueta, it's not like that he's bad, but I think a Neymar replacement or somebody more in the way of Neymar could be called up. It's true, they have Hendrick over here as well that can play number 10 or can drop a bit deeper and play from there as well. But I mean, it's not like I don't like Paqueta. I like him and I think it's not a wrong call, but I think it's this midfield in general is a bit too rigid and a bit too solid for my opinion. But this is just vibes, you know what I'm saying? I think Luke Paquetá can make a great World Cup. I'm not saying he's a bad choice. And then, of course, the man that everybody wanted, Neymar Jr. comes here. I think it's awesome that we can see Neymar once again. Probably will be his last World Cup. I don't think he'll last as long as Ronaldo and Messi. And I just hope he can play really, really well. A lot of Brazilians seem to defend Neymar and say that he's not the reason Brazil has not been winning. They say he's been the only really good one in World Cups. For example, in the last World Cup, they say that Neymar was the one really trying the most and everybody was kind of bad around him. Hopefully, this season, this World Cup, the team, especially the forwards, can connect better with Neymar and have a bit of a better spirit, and Neymar can make assists, dribbles. Hopefully, he doesn't get too much injured because people really like to tackle him hard. So we'll see. But I'm really glad to see him, and I expect a lot of magic, and I want to see a lot of magic coming in from Neymar. Then you have Vinicius Jr. He's very good, but the Brazilians know this. He kind of sucks for the national team. So hopefully his mentality changes. I think he can't handle the pressure. He can't put the legacy of Brazil in his shoulders. It's just he's mentally blocked in that aspect. Hopefully he can solve it out. He can accept and embrace the Brazilian legacy and just play ball. Rafinha, of course, machine, one of the best players in the world last season. This season, not so great, but still, it's gonna be very, very good for the World Cup. And I think Martinelli for me makes no sense. It makes no sense. I think it's like, okay, I can see it now because he's a winger that plays under Arteta. He plays out on ball, right? So he's gonna be really good at defending as a winger, and he's good for counterattacks. He's good at creating something. But Brazil, I think, had much better. I think it doesn't make a lot of sense that Martinelli is here. But once again, he's not a bad player, and he's not going to be the reason that Brazil is not going to do well, I think. Then you have Ryan from Bournemouth. To be honest, I don't know much about him. 19 years old, wonder kid energy. The Brazilian people like that selection. I think he's going to do well. Now, Luis Henrique is a weird case because the Brazilian people like him. They just don't like the fact that he comes from Russia. They're questioning his quality and the intensity of his play. But we'll see. I think he has the potential to show ball, but we really have to wait to see how he connects with the rest of the team, right? Then you have Matheus Cunha, the second Man United player here, together with Casemiro. I think he had to come great season, playing really, really well. I think he'll score some goals here for Brazil. Then Igor Thiago, striker from Brentford. I think it's a good choice as well. Maybe João Pedro could have done better, but he's coming from that Chelsea environment, which is pretty weird. So I think it's a good call to not call João Pedro. And then Hendrik. I think for me, Hendrik had to come. I think he has a lot of accumulated energy. Like revenge, but not really. And I think it's really important for Brazil to have the Wonder Kids in the squad as well. Because they really want to show to the world. They want to show to the Brazilians that the spirit is alive. Show Gibola is alive. Joga Bonito is alive. And I think Hendrik can be the revelation of this World Cup. He comes in after a great stint at Lyon. And in this Brazil team going forward, I can't wait to watch Brazil. I really like this Brazilian team, bro. Brazil in general, not this team in specific. I like this team. They have good vibes. I think they have good vibes. I feel them in good spirits. I feel the yellow power rising. You know what I'm saying? The yellow and green rising, and I think Brazil will surprise us this World Cup. I think Brazil will surprise a lot of us actually. A lot of people saying Brazil has no chance. They'll lose in the group stage. They'll lose to Argentina. They'll lose to Germany. They lose to Spain. They lose to Portugal. They lose to France. Bro, they might surprise us with Ancelotti. You know what I'm saying? With Neymar, Vinicius, Rafinha, Hendrik going forwards. This team can surprise a lot of us. Now it will be, I think, more than an attacking question. It will be a defending question. How good can their central backs and the fullbacks hang on? And are their goalkeepers still on a good enough level for this type of competition? And can the fullbacks actually do something good? I hope Brazil goes far into the competition. I hope it's a Portugal-Brazil final. That would be epic. But I just want to see shows de bola. You know, I want to see the revival of the Brazilian spirit. And even if they don't win, if they fall short, imagine they come home soon, but they lose to a France or they lose to Argentina. I hope that at least they bring that spark back. They play really, really well. And I hope that if they go to penalties, that they go through, because their penalty shootout have been awful because of that pressure of the Brazil legacy. I hope these players can embrace the legacy and be empowered by it instead of dragged down. I want you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I want you to join me live here on YouTube, Twitch and Kick to play Football Manager 26. I'm doing a lot of World Cup content and we'll be doing a lot of watch-alongs. For now, the Champions League final, and then all the World Cup games that I can watch, I'll be watching, you better believe it. Thank you for watching, I wish you the best thoughts, ideas, feelings and emotions, and a whole bunch of individuality, creativity and responsibility as well. See you soon.